input process outcome or product. Simply because they are saying they are revolting against the Tsar does not mean they are revolting directly against him as an individual, which means personally. What they are mainly revolting against is the very fact that they do put in what we refer to as the input. And they are part of a process. But when it comes to the products, they are not getting anything. That's one. Which means when they are striking, it starts here. There's not going to be any, and there will not be any. At the end, there will be no. Which means if I'm a farmer and I'm not getting the bread, we are all not getting bread at the end of the day because I'm not going to go to work. So that basically destabilizes the whole process. It is not only directly against Mr. Nicholas, like I said, it's not personally against him to say, when we strike, you'll feel it, nigga. No, that's not the point. Instead, what they mainly are trying to showcase here is, if we stop, everything stops. And in this instance, that's where in now it basically means the people in leadership will have to attend to those problems much faster. Prime example, when there's a strike here in Lens, say we don't have water. And then we decide to strike, and then we come to the grounds by ourselves, and then we strike in the grounds. Hey, we are striking, will the government come and attend to our problem?
No.
But until we start affecting the actual process of everything, wherein there are people that should go to work, will go to where they are supposed to travel, the roads, we close them. And those people who are supposed to go to work will now make it a point that there is no. And when there's no process, the government by default will also suffer because of the lack of products. So in this instance, that's why they have to attend to it and be like, no. That one we need to attend to. Why? Because it affects their economy. So in this instance, when the Russians are striking in the streets, they are not necessarily saying we don't want the Tsar and that's it. They are also destabilizing the economy by so doing, which is striking and revolting in the streets. Are we together?
Yes.
Right, and then it continues to talk about the results. We did say that the Duma appointed the provisional government, which was unpopular because it represented interests of the middle and not the majority. How does this therefore start? The Duma itself was not appointed by the general masses, we did say, right?
Yes.
Who appointed the Duma? By changing what? What did he change for him to eventually come up with this idea to say, aha, I got it. They are not going to appoint. What did he change?
He dissolved the Duma.
He dissolves the Duma in 1905, and then what happens?
He elected his friends and his men.
Hey, the chorus.
He elected his friends and family.
He elected his friends and family. How? There's something that he changes in particular in 1907. That therefore makes it a point that, everything will work in his favor. How does he ascertain that everything works in his favor? Through the election of his friends and family. Because he's not going to personally say, hey, you, and you are now the Duma. He does something that therefore gives those people the chance. Yes, sir. Let's hear it. He only allowed the middle and top class to be the ones that are responsible or that have more voting power, rather. They are going to have more voting power by changing the 1907 electoral law. That's what it said. So he's going to change the electoral law by giving more voting power to the middle and top. That's where it now it basically means even the people that will be appointed by the Duma, they are not going to be popular because they are not going to be representing anyone from the lower class, because the Duma itself is not representing anyone from the lower class. That's why the people from the lower class saw these two as things that are not going to be of use to them in order for them to achieve that which we speak of as a
Revolution.
Because there's that part in the notes that we dealt with from last week that said the middle or the lower class rather saw the Duma as not of any use to them when they want to engage in a revolution. Or they said it's impossible for them to achieve any revolution through the Duma. Why? Because the Duma has other interests to deal with, not those of the lower class. So in this context, when it comes to the Duma, it's useless to the people in the lower class. When it comes to the people that will be referred to as the provisional government, they'll also be useless and non-relatable to the people in the lower class. That's wherein now the people in the lower class will have their own electives. Who are they going to elect, or which organization are they therefore going to be represented by? It was louder. Just say the last term, it's fine. The Soviets. In this instance, when it comes to the people that are going to therefore be that which are seen as the representatives of the lower masses, or the people in the lower class, they'll be what we call the Soviets. The Soviets. We forgot about the Soviets.
What's the full name, sir? Petrograd.
It's the Petrograd Soviets. Now let us look at it in this manner. People at the top will be represented by the Duma and the provisional government that has appointed itself. Because when you speak of the Duma, it's people in the higher class. And when they appoint people, they are going to appoint people in the higher class. It's self-appointment at this point because their interests are aligned. But when it comes to the people in the lower class, they are not recognizing either one of the two, which is the provisional government and the Duma itself. They therefore say we are represented by a different group, and that group is the one that we are talking often about at this point, which is the St. Petersburg Petrograd, the St. Petersburg Soviet or the Petrograd Soviet. What do we say? Why do we say St. Petersburg or Petrograd? This is the same place. St. Petersburg and Petrograd are the same place. Is the same place, right? And it is only changing Amakama when they start feeling like this one is not Russian enough. And they therefore call it Petrograd. And Petrograd will now be the term that we use until we eventually talk about Moscow. So at this point, we are talking about the Petrograd Soviet. What is the Petrograd Soviet? Someone asks. What is the Petrograd Soviet? I ask.
It's a party that
It is a party
that
like.
no.
No. No, yes. It's a party that specifically protects workers' rights. And when it comes to the workers, it's the proletariat. And in this context, when we speak of the proletariat, they are therefore going to elect the Soviet. When they elect the Soviet to be their representative, it basically means the Soviet itself will have to protect the rights of the workers. Are we together? Now let us move. After that, so we are therefore going to say the provisional government was opposed by the Petrograd Soviet. Because the Petrograd Soviet represents the organization, the society that is not recognized by the Duma and the provisional government itself. Am I too fast, too slow? Okay.
Okay.
Right. The Petrograd Soviet, with support from the soldiers and workers, Lenin's return and his April thesis, Soviets to replace provisional government, and he promised land, bread, and peace. We did say that when Lenin returns, one of the organizations that is responsible for their return is what we call the organization that is the provisional government. Because they are unpopular and they want to gain favor from the society. They are going to say, hey, everyone, listen. If you were once arrested by Utsar, or if you were once exiled under the leadership of Utsar, now that Utsar Nicholas II has abdicated, you are all free to come back into the country. And then when that is said, Lenin and Trotsky are therefore going to make a return.
So when that arrested you were going out of the country?
Not necessarily always. It wasn't always the case. It was more so when you are politically active against him. But if you are a personal threat to him, I think execution was by far the leading consequence you face. Lenin was one of the people that could have been executed if he wasn't smart enough to actually allow himself to be exiled and keep on running away from the Ukraine. Questions?
No.
Right, and then we spoke about the very fact that Lenin will come back in April, but don't think that he'll be in April, June, July, August the whole time. He'll be in Russia. Because the provisional government itself is therefore going to see, oh no, we brought back the wrong person. This one has to go. And then Lenin runs away again to only return once we stop off the October Revolution. Now we're together. So fast forward. We speak of the peasants and workers being disillusioned with the provisional government. When we speak of them being disillusioned, what do we mean? Why do you think we mean when we say someone is disillusioned? Sounds big, but it's something we experience a lot. Almost every day. Disillusioned. It says here, peasants and workers were disillusioned with the provisional government. What is illusion, Carl? Yes, sir. They were not necessarily upset with the Tsar's leadership. When they are under illusion, illusion is when someone makes you see something that is not actually there. Like I can show you, like I have 10 fingers, but I don't have 10 fingers. Instead, I have 9. But I have 10 when you see, but I have 9. That's what an illusion is. It shows you something that is not there. So when we say they are disillusioned, Initially, these people thought that the provisional government will work in their favor. Workers and peasants and many others in the society, the armsmen, many other people that were mainly protecting the provisional government, they thought that the provisional government will eventually get it right. Let us give them a chance. Until they started saying, but no, man. No. Something is wrong here. These people are not working for the society. Instead, they are working only for themselves. So that's why we are now going to say peasants on earth as well. Disillusioned. Because they now saw the provisional government for what it is, not what they had hoped it would be. So in this context, it says Lenin had a plan to overthrow the provisional government through the Bolshevik revolt. And Trotsky, being the military leader, made the Red Army victorious. When we speak of the Red Army, it is the army that will now be led by the Bolsheviks. Now, you need to also consider one thing. Let us run back just a tad bit. You do remember what is the Zama Bolsheviks, right? They are going to have the Red Army. Then there are the people on the other side, which we once spoke about, which are known as the Mensheviks. The Mensheviks are going to collaborate with many people from the middle and top to therefore form their own army to try and fight against the Red Army. Red Army, Bolsheviks, Lenin, Trotsky. Mensheviks are therefore going to form that which we are going to call the White Army. Are we together?
Yes. So there's the Red Army and the White Army.
There's the Red Army and there is the White Army. The Red is specifically for Bolsheviks, Lenin, Trotsky, communism, like that. White Army, Matov, many others, part of the provisional government, and inclusive of the very fact that they are also trying to implement communism. They do not want to implement capitalism. They both want to implement communism. The only difference is the approach. You do remember?
Yes.
The manner of approach is the only difference that sets them apart. Now comes this part. Trotsky will lead the Red Army into victory when we start talking about 25 to 26 October. And when we speak of the 25 and 26 October, it's where Lenin is now fighting directly against the provisional government and the White Army. In order for him to eventually take power, he has to fight a war. And this is the civil war that we are therefore going to talk often about, which will be the first one. When Lenin comes into power, he comes into power through a through a civil war. And then we talk of the Winter Palace that was surrounded, and the provisional government surrendered power with minimum bloodshed. And this is where now Lenin takes power. Are we together?
Yes.
Why am I not emphasizing the middle or the story part of them fighting and whatever the case may be? It's because this is not so much as important. It's hardly asked. If it's asked, it is through sources. And the sources will give you the answers. So in this instance, we are therefore going to talk about Lenin who promised land, bread and peace. And this appealed to everyone. And that's when now we are therefore going to move from Lenin being in power. And we start talking about how he implements what we refer to as
War community.
because it does not start off easily where it says, hi, I'm Lenin, you guys have been supporting me. Now it's communism and they're like, yay. No, instead what happens is Lenin will have to introduce what we refer to as
War community.
which means people are going to be forced to now implement what we'll talk about it in great length tomorrow.